14 Hunter and Central Coast high schools have pitched their talents against each other. More than 1,400 students have spent hours perfecting their routines in the Hunters Rocker Stedford. But only the best have made it into the final. Hopeful performers were today brushing up their steps at Newcastle's Entertainment Centre. The best schools will win cash prizes, and for those who miss out tonight, they can try again in next month's statewide Rocker Stedford in Sydney.
"12-year-old Michael Hanna from Edgeworth was airlifted to the John Hunter Hospital suffering chest and back injuries. He's now in a satisfactory condition. After an overnight camping trip with their dads, Michael and a group of friends set out to explore bush in the Mount Vincent area this morning. The 12-year-old lost his footing and tumbled 15 metres down a timbered slope, ending up on an overhung ledge. The rescue helicopter was called in and confronted with one of its trickiest jobs yet.
We hovered over the tall trees and we lowered the paramedics actually down through the trees into the lantana just adjacent to the patient, and then they worked their way up to the patient, and we then hoisted the equipment down.
The helicopter manoeuvred among the tall timbers as crewman Graham Nickerson guided a cable down to the paramedics and patient.
Where we had to lower the cable down some 150 feet and then back the helicopter right out off the cliff to get down in amongst the trees and carry out the hoist and lift him out.
On a scale of difficult jobs, how does this one rate?
9.
And a Singleton doctor and his 3 children were lucky to escape with just a few sneezes after their 4-wheel drive was washed off a causeway in the Hunter River late yesterday. The vehicle was shifted sideways by a strong current and sank up to its windows with the family still inside. The driver called for help from a mobile phone before it too went under. Singleton police and ambulance officers rescued the children aged 3, 5 and 6, then hooked up a winch to drag the vehicle out. There are no regrets and no rust on this lot. More than 100 members of the Ulysses Club from the Central through to the mid-north coast hit Newcastle for a look at the latest from the Bavarian Motorworks. It's the 1100cc Sports Tourer. There's not much frame, an innovative front-end suspension system and a horizontal twin-boxer engine configuration. Many of the bikers are just catching their second wind, dragging out the leathers and getting back on the big bikes for regular tours. 40-year-olds can just scrape into the club, but full membership comes when you're 50. 70 to 80-year-olds are still cruising.
Of all the councillors wanting to become mayor, the longest serving is independent John Kilpatrick. Councillor Kilpatrick's service to the community is far-reaching. In 1987 he was named Citizen of the Year and he's a member of various committees and community groups. They form his main interest along with his family. Councillor Kilpatrick believes restoring confidence and leadership into council is the most pressing problem facing the city. A similar view held by fellow independent Alan Davis. Councillor Davis lives at Killaman Bay. He too works on various committees and is strongly involved with the local historical society. Family, music and the arts are his main interests. Councillor Davis believes the most pressing problem for the city is a lack of forward planning and the unresolved issues including Green Point and the Wanji Reserve Road. Councillor Greg Piper is also an independent. He was elected to council in 1991 but has been strongly involved in politics through the environmental movement. His community work has also centred around the environment and he names his interests as ducks and computers. Councillor Piper believes job growth is important to Lake Macquarie. Becoming mayor has long been an aspiration of 42-year-old Mark Booth. Councillor Booth is president of the Swansea Chamber of Commerce, as well as being involved with various other committees. Real and model aeroplanes are his passion, and he believes it's important accountability and integrity are restored to council. The only ALP candidate is Councillor John Jenkins. Councillor Jenkins joined the ALP in 1974 and council in 1980. He too has a strong community involvement. He says his interests include running, keeping fit and music. He believes stability and strong leadership must be brought back into council so that council can work for the people.
Wonderful. I've never won anything like this before.
Challenging 1 to 1.5 metre waves greeted competitors this morning for the second round of the Caltex Grand Prix, which lifesavers can manoeuvre an inflatable rescue boat through the surf to a drowning swimmer and then return them safely to shore. Soldiers Beach from the Central Coast went into the event as points leaders after winning the first round 2 weeks ago at Wombrall. 35 teams from Sydney to Queensland competed in today's showdown. However, they could not match the skill of the Soldiers Beach squad once again. The third and final round will be held in Newcastle in 2 weeks' time. Beach now have an almost unassailable lead on 38 points. Sitting on second is Nobby's Beach with 22 and third is Catherine Hill Bay on 20.
Several hundred four-wheel drive owners from Sydney, the Central Coast and the Hunter left Newcastle in convoy bound for Gloucester near the Barrington Tops. 130 kilometres later, they'd reached their destination. The off-road enthusiasts were welcomed by residents of Gloucester, all of whom were protesting about a proposal to make part of the Barrington Tops a wilderness area. If that happens, these vehicles and other forms of transport would be banned from entering the popular bush retreat.
It effectively locks them and their vehicles out of the entire 63,000 hectares under the proposal.
The wilderness status would also mean timber milling in the area would be banned. The convoy ended here with more than 3,000 concerned residents and owners of four-wheel drives gathering to hear the various viewpoints. Gloucester Mayor Barry Ryan says if the proposal goes ahead, the town will be financially ruined.
If this proposal goes ahead, Gloucester will lose 80% of its entitlement for timber, and no mill can keep going under those circumstances.
Tim Walker, an electrician who works for timber mills in the area, says a ban on logging would have serious consequences for his family.
I would most likely end up unemployed.
The National Parks and Wildlife Service believes about 63,000 hectares of land at the Barrington Tops should be declared a wilderness area. A spokesperson for the service says public comment is welcomed, but the final decision about the Barrington Tops' future rests with the state government. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
A crowd of 5,000 turned out at Kempsey to watch the hardy off-road machines go through their paces. Competing in a Verco off-roader, Osborne claimed the pole with a sizzling time around the 8-kilometre circuit of creeks, tracks and farmland and jumps. He clocked 3 minutes and 54 seconds. He was a massive 6 seconds ahead of his next competitor. Moree driver Doug McMillan came in second, then Daylight, while Victorian Les Brown was third. After today's prologue, more than 130 cars and drivers will set out at 7 tomorrow morning. The winner is expected to take 8 hours to cover the gruelling 470-kilometre course.
Two weeks ago, we brought you the story of how the NBN drought appeal is helping more than 100 farmers in the northwest by providing grain and hay for starving stock. Since the appeal began, more than $54,000 has been donated, as well as thousands of bales of hay. This week, around 3,000 bales will arrive in the town of Warialda after their long journey from the Hunter. For more than 50 farmers in Muswellbrook and Denman, it's more than just a simple donation. They too have been struck by drought and recession, but they've still found it in their hearts to give. This weekend, hundreds of bales were loaded onto trucks by volunteers from St Heliers Prison. They too have helped in the struggle against the drought. And it's a contribution that is very much appreciated by farmers like Garth Skinner in the northwest.
The funds are virtually non-existent these days in the bush, and when you're not sure much how much longer you're going to have to feed for, this is just a godsend, and we really appreciate it.
It was a very happy John Kilpatrick who arrived at last night's council meeting, offering commiserations to ALP councillor John Jenkins, whom he defeated in Saturday's mayoral poll. This is the last time he'll take his seat along with the other councillors. From next Monday, when he's sworn in as mayor, Councillor Kilpatrick will fill the vacancy left by Doug Carley and temporarily held by Deputy Laurie Manning.
I'll move sideways after the induction, which won't be tonight, but Councillor Kilpatrick, my sincerest congratulations.
Also at last night's meeting, Robert Gray was officially appointed the city's new General Manager. For the last 10 years, Mr Gray has been an Assistant General Manager at Wollongong. He'll start work at Lake Macquarie at the end of next month. It's hoped the new General Manager and Mayor will help bring an end to the instability and turmoil which have plagued the council over the last 12 months. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
For Raymond Terrace residents, it's been a long wait to get traffic out of their neighbourhood. Approval of the environmental impact statement for the bypass of the town now brings the project a step closer. Highway traffic will divert to the east of the town from a point near the intersection of the existing highway and Masonite Road. It will rejoin north of the residential area. There's only one significant change to original plans, with the Richardson Road interchange moving east, reducing the need for property acquisition. Raymond Terrace Chamber of Commerce believes the town's shopping centre will benefit by moving highway traffic away from the area.
I think definitely we needed the bypass will happen as soon as possible. Certainly some businesses will be disadvantaged, but in the main it'll be great for customers, residents, businesses alike.
Mayor of Port Stephens Council, Councillor John Bartlett, has welcomed approval of the EIS.
Minister's announced a couple of small changes, but we're quite happy with those, and hopefully 3 years' time, whenever the contract's finished, we'll be bypassing Raymond Terrace with 30,000 vehicles a day.
Approval of the environmental impact statement has renewed calls for an immediate start to work on the bypass. Member for Port Stephens Bob Martin fears with the Newcastle-Sydney freeway nearing completion that the additional traffic which will be generated will only exacerbate existing traffic problems being experienced at Raymond Terrace. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Time had almost run out for the Falcons when Grant Kruger dived to try and gather in a loose ball. He fell awkwardly, injuring his shoulder, and played no further part in the game. Physiotherapist Lee Jensen says Kruger nearly dislocated his shoulder in the fall, and it could have taken months to repair. He intends to work on the injury for the rest of the week in a bid to have the tough guy fit for this Saturday's game against Canberra. If it doesn't heal well and he plays too soon, it could become a recurring problem. But Kruger says he has no second thoughts about what he did.
I probably would have done it again because we were down. We needed something, to change the course of the game. And if I would have got the ball, it ended up in a jump ball anyway. I think we lost it, but no, it's just one of those things. You want to get the ball off him in that situation.
Also in for treatment, Paul Kuiper, the big guy, has been in sensational form lately and put some of it down to his daily knee tune-up. A good sense of humour at the expense of the physio doesn't hurt either.
The line has captured plenty of attention. After unceremonious arrival at the podium, Fatty Vaughton finally filled Newcastle in on what he's getting back to us about. The Newcastle joins Tamworth and Grafton as WBB venues, and the host is confident of strong Hunter support.
I know what it's like to run out here for Manly and then a couple of times for East, and with the whole crowd against you, and it'd be nice to come here with them for you for a change with the Barbie.
State Emergency Service Lower Hunter Executive Wayne Carson says proceeds from the event will hopefully provide a much needed boost for them.
So we're looking at 2.5-3 rescue trucks on a grant basis, and each unit to have a direct grant into them of $2,000 to buy rescue equipment of their own choice.
Fatty used today's visit to meet some of the SES personnel the Barbie aims to help. The biggest crowd to attend Marathon Stadium is 45,000 people. The record for the world's biggest barbecue is held by Iowa in the United States with just over 35,000 people. The question now whether Newcastle and the Hunter can top that figure and make it into the Guinness Book of Records. I'll get back to you on October 10. Gary Blair for NBN News.
"22-year-old Graham Monk was reported missing on Wednesday, June 16th, after he failed to turn up for work. He had last been seen the Saturday before.
He was last seen by his girlfriend at her place when he picked up his motor vehicle. They'd had a tiff shortly beforehand, and he got in his motor vehicle and then drove off.
It's believed he then drove to this Hexham service station.
Well, his Commonwealth key card had been used to purchase $27 worth of petrol.
The first breakthrough in the investigation came last Thursday when an anonymous caller contacted Graham's mother to say he'd found Graham's car, a black Mazda 929 station wagon, near Pole Blue in the Barrington Tops. Today, Police Air Wing searched the Pole Blue camping area in the Barrington Tops and its surrounds for 4 hours. However, their efforts revealed nothing.
One hypothesis is that he may have stayed at one of the camping areas and the car may have been taken by some other people to the location where it was found.
He says at this stage, foul play can't be ruled out. Graham's family is left bewildered by the mysterious disappearance of the eldest of 3 sons.
Is he reliable?
Very reliable. He is usually my reliable one. So, yes, it is a little bit hard to comprehend what's going on.
Marie Monk describes Graham as a quiet, caring person.
If anybody has seen him any time over the 6 weeks, to please contact Wallsend Police. And if Graham is watching, please ring us and let us know you're all right.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
It's not Darling Harbour, home of the boat show, but an impressive sight nonetheless. More than 30 cruisers from the Royal Broken Bay Motor Yacht Club entered Swansea Channel this morning on their annual safari to Lake Macquarie, where they'll be hosted by the Motor Yacht Club at Toronto. Come summer, offshore pleasure craft will be subject to the many and stiffer regulations already applying to boats on enclosed waters. The Maritime Services Board up to 3 nautical miles or 6 kilometres out. Boats heading offshore will have to have licensed skippers and carry compliance plates. Navigational skills will be tested by inspectors, and boating booze buses may also take to the ocean waves. The crews of this flotilla were conducting their own navigational trials today ahead of a mostly social weekend. Sunday will see the Sydney to Newcastle offshore powerboat race as part of the Sydney Boat Show. The show continues at Darling Harbour until next Wednesday. It was a chance to meet a legend of Australian surfing and 2 of the country's leading longboard riders. That's Mark Hancock, who won the last Byron Bay Classic and Snow McAllister Memorial, followed by Marty McMillan, the 1991 World Longboard Champ, then Bob McTavish, the engineer of modern shortboard surfing, and me. A tough assignment, I know, but what better way to talk surf with these blokes? Bob McTavish, usually at home at Lennox Head, has found Newcastle lads Marty and Mark to test pilot his new boards. The boards have an extra lightweight foam centre and a super tough vacuum laminate finish.
Very lightweight materials involving wood and epoxy. Much greater pivot points in the tail which loosen the board. Fins moved a long way forward.
The boards, which sell for about $800, are a far cry from the traditional planks. They're designed with concaves and extra lift, making them loose to surf in fast beach breaks.
I'm building boards that pivot really fast and accelerate fast to make use of the pivoty, changeable conditions. And then we move on to Hawaiian boards after that.
Bob never has lost his energy in surfing or design, and instead of trying to shorten boards, he's just trying to make them perform that way. The Malmasters let me get a wave or 2 before I left them to another tough day in the office. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. Newcastle RSPCA shelter manager Sue Patchett is fed up with people mistreating their pets. She often sees the end result of animal abuse. Sometimes it takes months to rehabilitate the victims of cruelty, and other times they're just too late.
We're hoping to stimulate some interest from the public to ring, knowing that they will be kept anonymous, and give us information where acts of cruelty may be being committed that we have previously been unaware of.
Animals are protected by law, and people who harm them are liable for fines up to $2,000 or 2 years in prison. The phone hotline number is 008 634 316.
The acts of cruelty may be food-deprived animals, animals without shelter, dogs without shelter from the rain. Maybe there's animals, dogs particularly, who never get exercised. Unwarranted act of cruelty with cats, where people know that people are abusing cats and this sort of thing. Anything that's going on with regard to animals we'd like to know about.
The Knights have kept up the enthusiasm at training this week. A win against the beleaguered Rabbitohs will help them finish higher up the ladder, but also means dollars in the pocket. They might be out of the semis, but they still get win bonuses. Coach David Waite says although Souths aren't having much success this year, they can't be taken lightly.
We've got anyone that we play at the moment is very dangerous. The blend of youth they've put into their side now means that at this part of the season they'll have a great deal of enthusiasm, which I think is their great asset at the moment.
In local league, tomorrow's South's Charlestown game has been moved to Empire Park at Bar Beach due to the state of Townsend Oval. The other teams in yellow have the home game. This week's local rugby union has been moved to Sunday due to the Australia-South Africa test. Officials have decided to play the washed-out round from earlier this year. And in soccer, just one game tomorrow in the NBN League. The other 4 games will be played on Sunday. After 6 months of racing, this weekend was meant to be the highlight of the finals, but rain early this morning put paid to some breathtaking times. Instead, spectators were on the edge of their seats watching the result of a slippery track. Junior racer Simon Roberts from Raymond Terrace is just big enough to see over the wheel, but still able to carve up the track like a veteran. The finals begin at the West Walls End track tomorrow lunchtime. And at Cessnock, day 1 of the State Ladies Veterans Hockey Carnival. Although most are pretty guarded about their years, they will admit that they are all over the qualifying age of 35. Some players have come out of an early retirement to play and show they still have what it takes with the stick. Tomorrow, selectors will name a state team to contest the national championships later this year. The game was switched to Empire Park due to the extremely wet Townsend Oval, but the South players looked as if they'd been using it all year. It was Sam Stewart's last game for the Butcher Boys, and it was probably his best. The big Kiwi was involved in everything Charlestown did. However, it wasn't enough. South continually broke free of tackles and kept scoring. South's Michael Varnum and Central's Sean Batiste were both given 10 minutes after a headbutt and exchange of punches in a scrum. Not content with leaving the matter there, both continued their discussion as they left the field. It was the first of many flare-ups for the day. Back to full strength after half-time, and South kept their momentum going and left Charlestown to contemplate next year.
The Zoological Parks Board of New South Wales runs Taronga Zoo in Sydney and the Western Plains Zoo in Dubbo. Now it seems it wants to build an aquarium and shark research centre in Newcastle.
We've produced some schematic drawings showing a fully integrated aquarium complex, car parking and conference and normal, shopping opportunities.
The multi-million-dollar complex may be built at Horseshoe Beach at Nobbies or on part of the Honeysuckle site. The land at Nobbies is owned by the Hunter Ports Authority. Managing Director Jeff Connell welcomes the proposal.
The Ports Authority would be delighted if the area was used for this purpose. It looks like a most exciting project for the City of Newcastle.
It's hoped an official announcement about the proposal will be made next week. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Only a handful of races into the meeting and one rider found the inside of the track too slippery and ended up outside the course. The section he hit was actually a gate. A few running repairs and the racing was back on. This time the sidecars pushed their way through the corners. The bumps sometimes turned to squash. One crewman had his head caught between two bikes but walked away without any serious injury. And Australia's latest boxing favourite, Kostya Tszyu, arrived in town this morning to start talking up this month's fight against Trinidad's Livingston Bramble. Tszyu says the 32-year-old could prove an interesting match. Tickets for the fight on the 23rd are selling fast.
About 25 axemen competed in the 7 events. Underhand, starting block, butcher's block and novice categories were held. The top guns of the championship all lined up for the feature event of the day, the Bill Rhodes Memorial Chop. However, local lad Michael Kellett's fast and furious chopping got him the prestigious title. Lawrence Hoffman of Dorrigo came second in the Cup and Greg Baxter of Maxville came third. The event was a success according to organisers and a fitting tribute to Bill Rhodes, who was one of the area's best known characters.
We named the main event after him because he'd done a lot of work for the district, and the money that we used to run this event was mainly sponsored by his family.
Yesterday, Senator Graham Richardson made a tour of the new site for the controversial Port Macquarie Base Hospital. Today, at a meeting of the Lyne electorate, he vowed his opposition to the hospital.
I intend to oppose it. I've now seen both the old hospital and the site of the new one. And the new one's a great hospital. It should be built, but it should be a public hospital, and I think a grave error is being made.
About 40 people attended today's meeting at Harrington Primary School. It was a routine quarterly get-together of the Electorate Council. Graham Richardson says he has a strong affinity with the area. He's the duty senator for Lyne and he has family in the Hastings. Mr Richardson told delegates that the Lyne electorate was on the ALP hit list. He said Labor intended to swing the National Party seat to the left in the next election. Senator Richardson gave local ALP members a rundown of the party's policy and told them what to expect in the budget. But the main issue of the two-day visit was the privatisation of Port Macquarie Hospital.
And it's obvious in every local community where this is occurring, as in Bunbury in Western Australia now, and here in Port Macquarie, there's always outrage when you try and take away a public hospital, and there ought to be, because I think every community values their public hospital. They'd never want to lose them.